evening, Acadiana. You're listening to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with The Advocate, our local source of journalism and all good things, all good news. Well, maybe not all good news, but all the news that is fit to print in The Advocate. And we're joined this morning by Bruce Cohen. Bruce, how are you, bud?
Hey, I'm doing just fantastic.
Excellent.
A little technical issues. That's why I'm coming in on so late this morning. Sorry about that.
I don't think the audience would even have known the difference. We played music for a few extra seconds, but that's how smooth and professional our interactions are here.
Well, the broadcasting gods looked on me and said, okay, we'll let you do it this morning. So
thanks to them and thanks to you, and I'm going to listen, Bruce. Thanks, bud.
All right, man. Take care. Well, good morning, Acadiana. The first story we'd like to read to you this morning. Advocates say ruling will help locally by Adam Daigle, Acadiana's business editor. Monday's Supreme Court ruling will help end discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity in the workplace in Lafayette and statewide that continues to happen, one LGBTQ advocate said. The court ruled by a vote of 6-3 that a landmark civil rights law protects LGBT people from discrimination in employment, a resounding victory for LGBT rights from a conservative court. Civil Rights Act of 1964, known as Title VII, that bars job discrimination because of sex, among other reasons, encompasses bias against LGBT workers. In Lafayette, that decision was needed after incidents in which people were fired for being gay, said Matthew Humphrey, president of the local Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. One downtown Lafayette business let go of his LGBTQ employees en masse, he said, while a Baton Rouge fast food chain also fired someone for being gay after he kissed his boyfriend just before arriving for work. His boss said, "You can clock out. We don't need you anymore," Humphrey said. Louisiana is still an at-will state. You can sneeze the wrong direction and get fired, but hopefully we can change some of that. I'm definitely aware of several instances between Lafayette and Baton Rouge where people were openly terminated because of their orientation or identity status. The issue is so basic that it should not have had to reach the Supreme Court for a decision, said Ted Richard, former president of Acadiana Pride. The issue would have been settled as part of the Title VII discussion that does not allow discrimination in the workplace. LGBTQ groups have long sought for equal rights, he noted, and not special rights. The fact that we are fighting for equal rights in 2020 is absolutely abhorrent, said Richard, 57. This should have never been a fight. Equal rights are equal rights. Civil rights are civil rights. The fact that this was taken all the way to the Supreme Court is beyond me. People could be fired for the perception that they were gay. They could have been fired if that was perceived. Whether that perception was true or not, that didn't matter. No statewide protection exists. Only New Orleans and Shreveport have approved ordinances that prohibit workplace discrimination for LGBT workers. Baton Rouge has an ordinance that protects only city employees. The ruling is a reminder for employers that one job status should be performance-based, said Elizabeth Henson, president of the Acadiana chapter of the Society for Human Resource Management. Some people kind of assumed that they were already protected, Henson said. Some people assumed discrimination was just illegal anyway, and hadn't realized there's a significant amount of people in our community waiting for this. This has been something we've been keeping our eyes on for years. The Supreme Court has just not been willing to take it on, but today they did, to everybody's surprise. The decision was somewhat stunning considering the conservative appointees to the court by President Donald Trump. Justice Neil Gorsuch, Trump's first appointee to the court, sided with the majority on the decision, along with conservative Justice John Roberts. With partnership in Congress and depending on who is in the White House, Humphrey said, you can never trust that they're going to have the interest of everyone. that all men and women are created equal like the Constitution says. I don't think there's any room for discrimination under our Constitution. The Supreme Court may take up other LGBT-related cases in the future. Lawsuits are pending over transgender athletes' participation in school sporting events, and courts also are dealing with cases about sex-segregated bathrooms and locker rooms, a subject that the justices seemed concerned about during arguments in October. The White House announced last week that it would roll back the Obama-era regulation prohibiting discrimination in healthcare against patients who identify as transgender under the Affordable Care Act. That decision allows insurance companies to view sexual reassignment surgery as an elective procedure. It doubles the cost out of pocket for the person having the surgery, Richard said. I think that's the big fight up next on the frontier. Okay. 3 public work employees test positive. Youngsville mayor says workers quarantined at home by Megan Wyatt, staff writer. 3 public work employees with the city of Youngsville has tested positive for the novel coronavirus. Mayor Ken Ritter confirmed the COVID-19 cases Monday afternoon, which were reported by employees last Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The first 2 were each out voluntarily, Ritter said. They thought they just had upper respiratory illnesses. The third one was asymptomatic, but got a test out of an abundance of caution for his own health. All 3 employees are quarantined at home and have not reported severe symptoms, according to Ritter. The cases have been reported to the local Department of Health office, but due to the nature of the employees' work, testing has not been required for everyone who works for the department or city, Ritter said. Public work employees generally work independently to maintain the city's roads, sewage, and drainage. They've been instructed to return to the public works barn less frequently than normal, but otherwise have not seen major changes to their routine jobs. When asked if the employees could have potentially contracted the virus while preparing the city for heavy rains forecast for Tropical Storm Cristobal on June 7th, Ritter said he doesn't think there is a correlation. I haven't really identified any similarities in their work pattern, Ritter said. 2 of the 3 are friends outside of work, so that might be something unique that could have contributed. Otherwise, public work employees work outdoors and they mainly work, or mostly work, independently. The city of Youngsville has been taking temperatures of all employees twice daily, last week at the recommendation of the Department of Health. Other safeguards remain in place, including limits on gatherings and distance requirements throughout the workplace, Ritter said. Fortunately, though, these employees don't have contact with the public, Ritter said. They're able to do their jobs while maintaining social distance or following the healthcare provider's guidance as to when they can return to work. Clearing the way, demolition of Les Pay Motel to make way for 105 apartments by Claire Taylor, staff writer. The building that once housed the Les Pay Motel on University Avenue at Cameron Street in Lafayette will no longer exist by the end of the week. Demolition of the building is scheduled to begin Wednesday, today, and take 2 to 3 days, Josh Colin, president of HRI Communities, said on Monday. In May, the Acadiana Advocate reported the owners of the Les Pay Motel were paid $100 for the property, according to records filed with the Lafayette Parish Clerk of Court. Colin said Monday the actual sale price was $700,000. The $100 entry, he said, is often used to record private transactions. Workers have been removing items from inside the building over the past weeks and started demolishing other buildings on the block over the weekend. HRI will transform the block into the Bottle Art Lofts, a 105-unit apartment complex for artists and others, Collins said. Phase 1 is fully funded and under construction, he said. It will be open this time next year. The first phase, Collins said, will transform 2 buildings on the National Register of Historic Places, a building on Cameron Street that was the former Coca-Cola bottling plant, and a warehouse behind it, into 40 apartments. The buildings were owned by Greg and Stephanie Dugan, who for years worked to establish the historic status of the buildings and to revitalize a neighborhood once a thriving area of the city that in the past decade or more was plagued by drugs and prostitution. Phase 2 of the Bottle Arts Lofts involves demolition of the LUS Fiber Motel and construction of 65 apartments on University Ave. Collins said the developers are hoping to close on all financing and start construction by the end of 2020. It should take about 14 months to build. The entire project will be 105 residential apartments to University Ave on Cameron Street, which residents and leaders hope will spark additional development in the neighborhood. That area of University Ave is part of an opportunity zone, which awards tax breaks for new commercial development. Last week, Collins said the Louisiana Housing Corporation approved a $7.29 million redevelopment grant for Phase 2 under the Piggyback Resilient Mixed Income Program. The program is specifically designed to develop resilient multifamily properties in areas that were generally impacted by the 2016 floods, according to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The Louisiana Housing Corporation website states, all projects will be required to incorporate resilient construction practices that use materials and techniques that increase the structure's ability to withstand adverse weather conditions. The block, Collins said, is outside a flood zone. The developers also are incorporating other techniques to qualify for the grant. The buildings will be raised and more robust to withstand hurricanes, he said, and rain gardens and cisterns will help store water rather than dumping it onto the city's drainage system during heavy rainfalls. Advocates urge more funds for homeless issues, crisis looming and pandemic officials say, by Adam Dole, Acadiana business editor. More federal and state money should be dedicated to helping avoid a homeless crisis in Acadiana and throughout Louisiana, two housing advocates say. The number of families that will be forced out of their homes due to job losses or other factors related to COVID-19 have risen and is expected to spike once moratoriums are lifted on filing evictions. Catholic Charities Director Kim Boudreau and the Acadiana Regional Coalition on Homelessness Director Lee Rachel said Friday during downtown Lafayette's Downtown Coffee Talk. The solution is to identify more sources of funding to help people retain their housing and help landlords assist tenants from being homeless. Data from the Louisiana Association of Affordable Housing Providers and Housing Louisiana shows nearly $55 million is needed to address rental assistance needs in Acadiana this year, and another $125 million for next year. As an organization whose primary mission is around housing and homelessness, this keeps me up at night, said Boudreau, whose agency offers assistance to families in danger of being evicted or having utilities disconnected. How do we speak loud enough to our elected officials in D.C. and Baton Rouge and Lafayette that this is a problem? You're not seeing it today, but as soon as those hotel programs end, and very soon because they're expensive, I'm saying we will have children on the streets of downtown Lafayette that are unsheltered and homeless. According to data from the coalition, 450 people have become homeless since March, a 58% increase and a 193% increase in family homelessness. Some have moved into hotels which are offering specials for extended stays. The homelessness issue, they noted, grew when the Salvation Army closed its shelter earlier this month, dropping the number of homeless shelter beds by 69. Other numbers indicate how big the issue could become. 80,000 have filed for unemployment since March, and 5,000 households are now at least 60 days behind on their electric bill. Rent assistance is the primary way to prevent this disaster, Red Show said, and identifying sources of funding that can be used for rental assistance has been a challenge of late. There's a lot of money coming from the federal government. Some of it says it's possible to be used for rental assistance, but by the time it gets down to the local community, that's not what it's used for. The Lafayette City and Parish Councils recently approved a proposal Mayor President John Skillery to distribute $825,000 in federal community development block grant funds to local businesses, despite pleas from Boudreaux and others to use some of it for rent and utility assistance. Landlords, Boudreaux said, are small business owners, and for landlords, keeping tenants in their homes makes more sense economically than filing an eviction or trying to find a new tenant. We're creating housing stability for our landlords that are small business owners. She said, we can't change what happened, but those that are in their house, we need to keep them in the house. It's so much more affordable. It's less traumatic, especially when you have children in the house. We want to make sure the landlords get the help they need to keep their tenants in their housing. And let's read a couple of public service announcements this morning. A homegrown pop-up market is coming to Macomb VC Cultural District. Homegrown pop-up market presented by the Macomb VC neighborhood is a family-friendly monthly community pop-up market happening every third Saturday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. featuring local businesses and artists. On Saturday, June 20th, this coming Saturday, the year 2020, there will be fresh veggies, vendors, and ideas to the neighborhood. New ideas. The Macomb VC neighborhood and its friends will host vendor booths, live music, games, and activities for all. The event will be held from 2 to 6 p.m. at the Macomb VC Community House, which is at 419 12th Street, at the intersection of 12th and South Magnolia Streets in Lafayette. Admission is free, and this event is open to the public. Brought to you in coordination with the Macomb VC neighborhood, Veggies on the Go, Health Vegetarian, and the Northside Vegan. Food and beverages will be available on site for purchase. Camp Unique, Dreams Foundation. Every summer, the Dreams Foundation of Acadiana hosts the greatest camp of all, Camp Unique. Camp Unique is suited for individuals with special needs. Camp Unique will be held July 13th through 17th for ages 5 through 13, and July 20th through 24th for ages 14 and up. Fee will be $75, and the theme this year is Peace and Love. All Camp Unique sessions will be held at Lark's Acadian Village. Individuals of all ages have a blast participating in a camp that is specifically tailored to them. You get the opportunity to take part in activities such as art, fitness, karaoke, music, and dance, as well as getting a Camp Unique t-shirt and a snack every day. A highlight of Camp Unique this year will be a storytelling session by Chief Greyhawk Perkins, said Dreams Foundation Executive Director Danielle Watkins. As a recognized expert on Native American and American colonial history, Perkins has inspired many audiences over the years, sharing tales of Asian cultures as a travel storyteller and as a teacher of various subjects in Louisiana's school system. The registration form for Camp Unique can be found on the Dreams Foundation of Acadiana website. That's dreamsfoundationaca.org. Volunteers are also being sought at this time. If you're interested in volunteering, please complete the application on the Dreams website under the Volunteer tab. For more information about Camp Unique, you can contact Danielle Watkins via email at Danielle, that's DONIELLE, at dreamsfoundationaca.org, or phone 337-962-1609. That's 337-962-1609. Okay, going back into the headlines of the news for this morning. Garth Brooks concert to be broadcast at Cajun Dole by Adam Daigle, Acadiana Business Center. The COVID-19 pandemic has all but silenced concerts in the United States, but don't tell that to Garth Brooks. The Cajun Dome broadcasts Encore Live's Garth Brooks Drive-In Concert Experience outdoors at Cajun Field on June 27th, Cajun Dome officials announced on Monday. The concert will feature Brooks performing in one of the largest one-night shows airing at more than 300 outdoor theaters in the United States and Canada. The Cajun Dome is the only Louisiana location for the event, according to a statement from promoters. Show times are 7:30 p.m. and 11 p.m. regardless of weather conditions. Tickets are $100 per vehicle, which includes more than no more than 6 people. No recreation vehicles are allowed. Tickets are scheduled to go on sale at 11 a.m. this Friday. The concert will be streamed through an FM transmitter for fans to listen to in their vehicles. Guests can also sit outside their vehicles, but social distancing guidelines are recommended. Masks are encouraged while visiting restroom facilities and concessions. Food and drinks will be available for purchase, and restrooms will be available. The Friends in Low Places singer was last in Lafayette in 2017 when he performed 5 sold-out nights at the Cajun Dome. More than 30,000 bought tickets to those concerts. The 2017 series ran from June 23rd to July 1st. Okay. Let's see now. Small businesses to get $300 million in aid from state. Edward signs bill for grant program from Sam Carlin, staff writer. About $300 million in federal coronavirus aid will go to small businesses in Louisiana after Democratic John Bel Edwards signed legislation put forth by Republicans to use a portion of the $1.8 billion in aid for state and local governments for business grant program. Edwards' spokeswoman, Christina Stevens, confirmed Monday the governor signed the bill, Senate Bill 189 by Senator Bodie White. Bill was backed by Senate President Paige Cortez and House Speaker Clay Schneckslider, both Republicans. Edwards agreed to the legislation despite publicly arguing that after using $1 billion to plug state budget holes, the other $811 million should go to local governments to offset coronavirus expenses. Instead, $300 million of that money will now go to small businesses through a program managed by Republican Treasurer John Schroeder, who has frequently butted heads with Edwards. The other $500 million will still be available for local governments. Cortez, Republican from Lafayette, said he's not surprised the governor signed the bill, calling it good policy. Cortez said he spoke with governor about the bill, and Edwards indicated he saw value in it. Cortez noted the governor has the authority to veto legislation, and lawmakers have the ability to override it, a rare action that is receiving more attention this year with a more conservative legislature. I don't think either of us want to be in that arena consistently, Cortez said. The new carve-out is a victory for Republican lawmakers who successfully put their stamp on how the state will spend the windfall of federal aid money. For businesses to qualify, they must be domiciled in Louisiana as of March 1st, 2020, have suffered an interruption of business, have a controlling interest by a Louisiana resident, have customers or employees coming to its physical premises, have no more than 50 full-time employees as of March 1st, and not be a subsidiary of a larger business, among other requirements. Legislative leaders have said they expect the program to get off the ground quickly to send money to businesses. Schroeder's office is required to submit a proposal for distributing grants to lawmakers by June 20th and to announce the date the program will begin on July 1st. Schroeder is also allowed to use up to 5% of $15 million of the fund for administrative expenses, a sticking point for opponents. Backers of the bill argued he would not end up using that much. Edwards' administration has said repeatedly it is unlikely local governments will be able to tap into all $811 million the governor wanted to set aside for them. That's because the money can't be used to offset local lost revenue, only to pay for coronavirus-related expenses. The state has footed most of the bill for those expenses, though the feds did give states wide latitude in deciding what is considered a coronavirus-related expense. For instance, all public safety payroll expenses qualify. Republicans argue that businesses, which are hammered by the pandemic and in many cases shuttered by state decree, should get a slice of the money, especially if local governments couldn't use up the whole pot of funds anyway. The governor, backed by New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell has criticized the legislation. Congress might come back and allow local governments to use the funds for lost revenue, in which case they may need the money, he said. Cantrell said the bill was political. In the meantime, Edwards' administration has moved forward with its plan to dole out funding to local governments. Monday was the deadline for local governments to apply, and state records show dozens of local government entities, including the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office, 19th Judicial District Court, and the cities of Baton Rouge, Lafayette, New Orleans, and a host of others had applied as of Monday. The amount of funding requested was not available. Also on Monday, House Democrats filed legislation to carve $50 million and up to $75 million, if more is left over, from the $300 million pot currently slated for small businesses. Instead of going to businesses, the funds would be sent to certain frontline workers in the form of $250 checks. Recipients would need to work in healthcare, childcare, or be first responders, have interacted with the public during the pandemic, and make less than $70,000. Representative Sam Jenkins, a Shreveport Democrat who chairs the party caucus in the House, said Monday the bill could get a hearing this week. Lawmakers were considering adding the legislation to a House bill currently awaiting passage in the Senate. Okay, we'll switch over to a couple more public service announcements, and then we'll hit our day in history, the Zodiac, and the funerals in the Acadiana area for today. Vitalant begins testing all blood donations for antibodies to COVID-19. Vitalant became the first national blood bank to test all blood donations for antibodies to SARS-CoV-2, the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. The nation's largest independent nonprofit blood collector serving hospital patients in South Louisiana is providing the best results to donors who complete successful blood donations, which are critically needed now. The antibody test authorized by the FDA will indicate if the donor's immune system has produced antibodies to the virus, regardless of whether they either showed symptoms. It is possible that over the time, the broad use of antibody tests and clinical follow-up will provide the medical community with more information on whether a person who has recovered from COVID-19 is at a lower risk of infection, and if so, for how long. For more information, you can visit vitalant.org/COVID-free. Donors are urged to give blood as soon as possible. Appointments are strongly recommended. You can visit vitalant.org or call 877-258-4825. That's 877-258-4825. AOC teams up with the United Way of Acadiana for Learn United. The United Way of Acadiana has teamed up with AOC and other local educational groups for Learn United, bridging the digital gap to provide educational resources for households that don't have internet but do have a television. The Learn United program airs weekdays from 8 to 2 on AOC 2, Cox 16, and LUS 4, and streaming at aocinc.org/watch. For the daily schedules and to submit content of the program, visit the United Way of Acadiana website. That's unitedwayofacadiana.org/learn-united. Okay, going to our day in history. Today is Tuesday, June 16th, the 168th day of 2020. There are 198 days left in the year. Potential shopping days, I should say, as I always do. Today's highlight in history, on June 16th, 1996, Russian voters went to the polls in the first independent presidential elections. The result was a runoff between President Boris Yeltsin, the eventual winner, and communist challenger Gennady Zyuganov. On this date in 1567, Mary Queen of Scots was imprisoned at Lochhaven Castle in Scotland. She escaped almost a year later, but ended up imprisoned again. Also on this date in 1858, accepting the Illinois Republican Party's nomination for the U.S. Senate, Abraham Lincoln said the slavery issue had to be resolved, declaring a house divided against itself cannot stand. In 1903, Ford Motor Company was incorporated. In 1911, on this date, IBM had its beginnings as a computing, tabulating, recording company, which was incorporated in New York State. In 1933, the National Industrial Recovery Act became law with President Franklin D. Roosevelt's signature. The act was later struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation was founded as President Roosevelt signed the Banking Act of 1933. In 1963, the world's first female space traveler, Valentina Tereshkova, 26, was launched into orbit by the Soviet Union aboard Vostok 6. Tereshkova spent 71 hours in flight, circling the Earth 48 times before returning safely. In 1970, Kenneth A. Gibson of Newark, New Jersey, became the first Black politician elected mayor of a major Northeast city. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter and Panamanian leader Omar Torrijos signed the instruments of ratification for the Panama Canal Treaties during a ceremony in Panama City. In 1987, a jury in New York acquitted Bernhard Goetz of attempted murder in the subway shooting of 4 youths. He said, "We're going to rob him." However, Goetz was convicted of illegal weapons possession. In 1996, a civil jury ordered Goetz to pay $43 million to one of the persons he had shot. 10 years ago, after meeting with President Barack Obama at the White House, BP Chairman Carl Herrick Svanberg announced the oil giant was establishing a $20 billion claim fund and suspending dividends as he insisted we care about the small people. 5 years ago, real estate mogul Donald Trump launched his successful campaign to become president of the United States with a speech at Trump Tower in Manhattan. 1 year ago, a massive blackout left tens of millions of people without electricity in Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay, in what Argentina's president called an unprecedented failure in the country's power grid. Most people had their power back on by evening. Today's birthdays, we have actress Ellen Atkins is 86. Actor Bill Cobbs is 86. Country singer Billy Crash Craddock is 82. Rhythm and blues singer Eddie Levert from the group Levert is 78. Actor Jeff Pearson is 71. Pop singer Gino Vanelli is 68. Rapper MC Ren is 51. And actor Clifton Collins Jr. is 50. The thought for today: our memories are card indexes consulted and then returned and disordered by authorities whom we do not control. Quote by Cyril Connolly, British critic, 1903 to 1974. And looking at today's zodiac or horoscope, if you're a Gemini, you set up space at home that encourages you to stay fit and to look and feel your best. How well you take care of yourself will affect your emotional well-being. Cancer, look for the good in whatever situation you face. A positive attitude will lead to unexpected responses that will help you get what you want. Leos, be willing to compromise and you will come out on top. A physical outlet will help get you in shape and lead to a compliment from someone you admire. Virgo, think outside the box. What you come up with will change the way you do your job and take care of your responsibilities. Don't give in to someone who's controlling. Libra, look at your surroundings, wardrobe, and the equipment you use for a hobby you enjoy, and replace anything faulty or worn out before you end up in a precarious position. Scorpio, you can rectify a problem you're facing with someone close to you. Open up a discussion that will help you both understand each other's needs. Don't let an outsider meddle. Sagittarius, be a good listener and observer, and you will stop someone from tricking you into doing something excessive. Change isn't always the best option. Fix what's broken and proceed. Capricorns, make an adjustment at home that will bring you peace of mind and make you feel good about the way you live and the people you love. A unique opportunity as a parent. Aquarius, keep your life simple, your plans doable, and your outlook positive. Refuse to fall into a situation where you feel obligated to get involved in something you don't want to do. Pisces, Give and do what you can. You'll do best when helping others. Situations will become emotional if you do what's right. Don't overreact or fold under pressure. Aries, keep what's going on around you in perspective. You have so much to gain if you hold firm. Work on self-improvement and take care of unfinished business. And finally, Taurus. You may crave change, but for now, you are best to take baby steps and be observant. Being smart regarding the way you interact with others will help you to avoid a setback. And as always, the entertainment, the horoscope or zodiac is an entertainment feature, not based on scientific fact. The funerals today in the Cajun area, we have Pearl Lamont at St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church, I believe that's in Scott, at 1:30 p.m. Okay, getting back into the news. We have a story here related from 99.9 KDY, which is in accordance with the Advocate. 2 young girls die in bizarre hammock accident. 2 sisters, 12-year-old Casey Scarvelli and 14-year-old Scout Scarvelli, were transported to a local Cleveland Heights. Okay, that's not local. I'm sorry, folks. I'm trying to get some other local stories here. And we'll just proceed with what we have here. Nursing home cases slowing in Louisiana. Officials too early to draw conclusions by Damon A. Roberts III and Yusuf Radad, staff writers. Infections and deaths from the new coronavirus among Louisiana's more than 23,000 nursing home residents appeared to have slowed through state officials on Monday, as they cautioned it was too soon to draw a conclusion from the latest data. Nursing home deaths remain a significant portion of the state's overall death toll, numbering 1,271 as of Monday. About 44,000 of the state's 2,906 COVID-19 deaths have been nursing home residents. The data shows that in general terms, the number of new infections and deaths in nursing homes appears to be trending downward. For instance, the state reported 47 deaths between June 8th and June 15th, according to the analysis of Louisiana Department of Health figures. The week before, there had been 72 deaths, and the week before that, 77. Those figures appear to mirror an overall statewide decline in new cases since late March and some of the deadliest weeks in April. And in recent weeks, the health department has observed occasional upticks in new cases, but they remain far below what the state saw during the peak of the outbreak. The number of deaths among nursing home residents this past week is less than 1/4 of the 202 deaths among nursing home residents the state reported on April 20th, using data from the previous week. That week marked the most deaths among nursing home residents to date. The number of infections also appears to be on an overall downward trend. There were 260 new infections reported on June 15th. All that's 37 more than the previous week. On Saturday, the state added to its overall tally a backlog of 560 tests going back as far as April 25th. It's unclear what impact that backlog might have had on nursing home infections. But even if the backlog inflated the total infection count, it's still lower than June 1st, when the state reported 358 new infections. The week before that, there were 297, and the one before that, 487. There have been 5,222 coronavirus cases reported in nursing homes around the state. Nonetheless, Health Department spokeswoman Mindy Fassian cautioned against drawing many conclusions from the state. It is too early to tell what could be driving that trend, she said Monday. We still have a high level of concern for the level of asymptomatic and symptomatic cases that are being found in a congregate setting such as nursing homes. Around the country, nursing home residents have been particularly vulnerable to severe effects of the coronavirus due to age, overall health, and the prevalence of underlying health conditions that weaken a person's response. As of May 31st, the Federal Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services estimated that there have been approximately 31,000 deaths among residents of the nation's roughly 15,000 nursing homes, which would have put the national percentage of total deaths at about 28%. But not other analysis, such as the one by the Associated Press, have indicated the toll could be much higher, close to the 46,000, which will make it about 40% of the nation's overall death total. For the first time Monday, the state also provided a racial breakdown of nursing home deaths. Just more than one-third of the deaths in nursing homes have been Black residents. White nursing home residents have accounted for about 65% of nursing home deaths. Other races have accounted for less than 1%. The Department of Health has not provided the racial breakdown of the total number of Louisiana nursing homes residents or total infections. More than half of the coronavirus attributed deaths in Louisiana have been African Americans residents, according to the Department of Health. White residents have accounted for about 45% of the deaths the numbers show. The data only includes the state's 278 federally certified nursing homes, of which 188 have reported at least one case. The data does not include other adult residential care facilities. There are 157 adult residential care facilities in Louisiana, which include retirement homes and private apartments offering some level of on-site care. The Department of Health reports only aggregate data for those facilities. As of Monday, 130 of those facilities have reported at least one case among residents or staff. The total of 659 cases have been reported, and those have resulted in 97 deaths. Monday marked the fifth time the state has reported individual site-level data for the state's nursing home, where some of the deadliest outbreaks of coronavirus have occurred. Forest Manor in Covington, where 38 residents have died, and J. Michael Moreau in Arnoldville near Lafayette, where 34 residents succumbed to coronavirus, remain the two deadliest outbreaks in the state. The Southeast Louisiana Veterans Home and Reserve has reported 28 deaths and what has been one of the state's most publicized outbreaks. Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center in Cato Parish has had the most infections, with 128 residents infected. 27 have died. No other home has had more than 100 infections, according to state data. New residential cases at Old Jefferson Community Care Center in Baton Rouge have remained at 83 since June 1st, with the 136-bed facility reported the deadliest outbreak in the capital region, with more than 24 deaths. Management told the Advocate last month it had scraped together tests from various sources to test all of its residents and staff members. A number of them tested positive without symptoms of the virus, such as fever or persistent cough. The latter report to the state shows 58 Old Jefferson residents have recovered from the virus. The House okays insurance lawsuit and legislation by Mike Ballard, Capitol Bureau editor. Wading back to the attempt to lower auto insurance prices, the Louisiana House on Monday passed two bills taking different tacks to limit an individual's ability to seek compensation for injuries in the state's courts. Governor John Bel Edwards on Friday vetoed Senate Bill 418, sponsored by River Ridge Republican Senator Kirk Talbot, which was passed 66-31 by the House on June 1st, the final day of the regular season. Edwards wrote in his veto message that no insurance company testified on behalf of the legislation, and the bill was neither a compromise nor is it a mandate to decrease rates. Rather than risk a veto override fight that neither side is sure of winning, House Republicans in the current special session advanced to the Senate two measures. House Bill 44 by State Representative Ray Garofalo is pretty much the same bill the House's Republican majority passed last year and earlier this month as SB 418. The vote was 74-24, four more than needed for an override if it comes to that. Essentially, it's Senate Bill 418 as it left the House in May with some minor changes, said Garofalo, Republican out of Chalmette, promising that should negotiations lead to amendments to the wording, as was the case with SB 418, He would ensure that members had had enough time to digest the changes. SB 418 was presented to the body with about 25 minutes left before adjournment. It's my bill this time, not Senator Talbert's, Garofalo said before refusing to take questions from his colleagues on the legislation. Senator Representative Robbie Carter, a Greensburg Democrat, and Garofalo didn't look like actor Bill Murray, but looking at the new bill, HB 44, it seems like Groundhog Day, referring to the movie of the same name where the actor repeats the same day over and over again. This isn't putting lipstick on the pig. This is a pig from the beginning, Carter said before the vote. Moments later, the representative passed House Bill 57 by House Speaker Clay Schneckside, a Republican from Gonzales, again with little discussion. HB 57 doesn't contain the detailed directions of HB 44, but makes many of the same changes to the state's court systems. The vote was 78 to 22. Both measures now head to the state Senate and would have to clear the legislative process in 2 weeks to head to the governor's desk. Supporters in the business and insurance community contend that Louisiana has the nation's second highest priced auto insurance because the state's civil justice system differs so much from the rest of the country. The legislation they call tort reform changes technical language in order to bring the state's courts more in line, which supporters argue will lower policy prices by 10%, maybe even 25%. Opponents among lawyers and judges counter no evidence or testimony as guaranteed rights would fall. No wording in either bill requires insurers to reduce premiums, but the dramatic changes to Louisiana's civil system would stress the courts and would leave people injured in accidents more beholden to insurance companies before litigating successful lawsuits would become much more difficult. The 5-part proposals would include extending the deadline for filing a lawsuit from 1 year to 2, called prescription, lowering the amount of damages sought in order to have the case heard by a jury instead of a judge from $50,000 to $5,000 for most personal injury cases called jury threshold, limiting medical expenses recovered to the actual payments made rather than what a healthcare provider charges, called collateral source, requiring lawsuits to be filed against the other driver rather than the insurance company, called direct action, allowing judges and juries to know if the injured plaintiff was not wearing a safety belt. The 10-page Omnibus Premium Reduction Act of 2020, HB 44, repeats the original bill and sets the jury trial at $5,000. The now almost 3-page Civil Service Justice Reform Act of 2020, HB 57, makes no promises of lowering insurance rates, but addresses each point in the omnibus bills, but without all the detailed changes. For collateral source, the legislation just says all medical costs are admissible without furthering wording about how to apply the change, and the same with repealing the ban on mentioning in court whether the plaintiff or the injured plaintiff was wearing a seatbelt. Okay, I'm going to go to a sports-related story, which we haven't been talking about too often these days, but we do have some sports stories lined up for you this morning. Going strong. What will LSU baseball look like after 4 go to the pros by Wilson Alexander, staff writer. In the middle of the second round of the Major League Baseball draft last week, Daniel Cabrera texted LSU coach Paul Mainieri. The junior right fielder had yet to get picked by a major league team, and as signing bonuses dropped towards 6 figures, he wondered if he still had a spot at LSU. About 2 minutes later, Mainieri received a phone call from the general manager of the Detroit Tigers. The organization wanted to select Cabrera, a 3-year starter, once projected to be a first-round pick. Mainieri didn't need to clear space. The next morning, Cabrera appeared into a computer screen holding his first news conference since the Tigers drafted him 62 overall. Cabrera reflected on his LSU career and looked toward his professional climb. Once a Tiger, always a Tiger, Cabrera said. I'm going from the LSU Tigers to the Detroit Tigers. One of 4 selections with LSU ties in the Major League draft this year, Cabrera will soon sign a professional contract. The slot value for the 62nd week was $1.1 million and leave a void in LSU's outfield. The draft threatened to purge LSU's roster, but it left the team mostly intact. The Tigers lost Cabrera, sophomore pitcher Cole Henry, and 2 recruits, catcher Drew Romo and pitcher Beck Way. Juniors Saul Gauser and Zach Mathis later signed contracts as undefeated free agents. Though LSU has to replace 3 of its best hitters at its Friday night stardom, the majority of the team will return next season. Pitching staff remains strong, and the young lineup will have another year of development. It's not like the cupboard is bare, Marinara said. We're going to have a lot of really good players. Marinara watched the draft unfold from his living room. He spent the 2-day event answering phone calls from general managers, friends in professional baseball, players, and incoming recruits. He stayed in constant communication with LSU recruiting coordinator Nolan Kane. Together, they shaped LSU's roster while major league teams made their selections, fitting 40 players into 11.7 available scholarships. By the time the draft was over, Marinara said, I was physically and mentally exhausted. But when it ended, LSU's roster next season snapped into focus. With the NCAA lifting its 35-man roster restriction for 1 year, the Tigers will carry 19 position players and 22 pitchers. Many of them contributed during LSU's shortened 2020 season. The pitching staff, which had a 2.38 ERA this spring, will once again from the backbone of LSU's team. The Tigers lost their race, but the rest of the weekend rotation sophomore Landon Marceau and redshirt sophomore A.J. Labus returned to school. Sophomore Jaden Hill can increase his endurance. He may slide into Henry's former role as a Friday night starter. Meanwhile, LSU's entire bullpen will come back. Junior closer Devin Fontenot decided to play another season at LSU after getting undrafted, and seniors Matthew Beck and Aaron George received another year of eligibility from the NCAA. Junior Mikhail Hilliard, who pitched once last season because of an arm injury, met with major league teams before the draft, but he has not received an offer to sign as an undrafted free agent. We could have the deepest, most talented staff we've had this coming year, Marinara said. We thought we did this past year, but we got everybody back except for Cole Henry. Plus, we've added a really good recruiting class. While LSU's pitching staff appears stacked, the lineup has question marks. 4 freshmen started last season. Cabrera, Mathis, and Garza left sizable holes. In their place, LSU will turn to inexperienced underclassmen and incoming recruits, hoping they have the talent to play early in their careers. Marinara anticipates a competitive fall practice. The 5-round draft, the shortest in Major League history, pushed more results to school than LSU anticipated when it formed its signing class. Outfielder Dylan Cruz, possible 3rd-round pick, withdrew his name from consideration. Pitcher Ty Floyd, 2-way player Brody Drost, and pitcher Blake Money and infielder Jordan Thompson all were undrafted and will come to school. They may push for early playing time. Without natural attrition through the draft, LSU trimmed its roster through transfers. 9 players have entered the NCAA transfer portal since the end of the season. 1 sophomore outfielder, Drew Bianco, withdrew his name. LSU expects the rest to leave school. We got relief on the roster side, but we didn't get relief on the 11.7 scholarships, Marinara said. In order to be NCAA compliant, some players need to find other places to go to school. We couldn't have everybody back. Marinara thought LSU missed a chance for a special year. He believed in the pitching staff. He thought LSU had found an offensive rhythm. He expected to be at the College World Series this week. Though LSU lost 4 of its best players, it held onto the majority of the team. Those are big losses to endure, Marinara said. But I do believe some really good personnel that's going to step in. Who knows? We might be better next year than we would have been this past year with those guys. And that about wraps up this morning's broadcast. I just want to say that if you are interested at all in becoming a newspaper volunteer reader for AOC, for our visually impaired community out there in Acadiana, and for those who don't get the newspaper on a regular basis or have access to the news cycle, we'd be more than happy for you to join our newspaper reading family. You can go to aocinc.org and fill out the application form for volunteer readers and come join us, be part of our family. I have very much enjoyed being a part of this program. Look forward to it. We do this Monday through Friday, every morning from 9 to around 9:55 or 10 a.m. And we appreciate you listening in. And again, if you're interested, just go to our site and fill out the form. And you can go to the aocinc.org to find out all information, all the programs that we have for our community from the Acadiana Open Channel or AOC. And we appreciate your interest and for you tuning in. So as always, I end by saying, especially now during these pandemic times, be safe, be healthy, wear your mask when you go outdoors, wherever you go, wash your hands frequently, sanitize, take care. Please do not get the virus or the potential to spread the virus if you've had it. Let's take care of each other and be kind to each other. And have a good morning, Acadiana.